Are you a Muslim who's married or looking to get married? I'm sure you've heard that more than 50% of Muslim marriages are ending in a divorce. Now that's unfortunate, but there's help out there. My name is Hina Mirza. I'm a registered psychotherapist with a specialization in Islamic counseling. And I've been working with hundreds of couples building healthy, happy, strong marriages. Sign up for the course that I just completed with Happy Strong Family to foolproof your marriage and make sure that you have all the right tools and all the right skills to lead a healthy, happy, strong life with your partner.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. This is Brother Mushtaq coming at you live from the Happy Strong Family podcast studio within the second floor of the Masjid Darul Iman building. I'm joined here today by Dr. Zaihan Rashid. Dr. Zaihan, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. As you can probably see, we've changed the layout of the studio, alhamdulillah. So it's a little bit something new that we'll be working with today.
Absolutely, it is.
And you and I were discussing before we went live that today you're going to focus on, what was it? The 10 T's, as in the letter T.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just go for the camera here, of a happy, strong marriage.
That takes you to Jannah.
Okay, there you go. Mission accomplished, right? So, and the beautiful thing you said off air was that even with your marriage of alhamdulillah, mashallah, 39 years, right?
Alhamdulillah.
That it is still a work in progress.
It is.
Right? So just lay that wisdom on the line here. Tell us, because we all go through this, right?
Yeah,
it is, as you say, and you rightfully said, it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's a journey. Right? There will be ups and downs. There's nothing like a perfect marriage, even as much as we try to either stay away from TikToks and Instagrams and the Facebooks of the world, but we're still glued to it.
Yeah.
So then that is kind of informing us as to, oh, this is what happiness is. This is what an ideal marriage is.
Yeah.
You know, so how can we actually have that happy marriage for ourselves with some practical tips?
For sure. Jazakallah khair. First of all, for asking me to come and talk on this topic. You use the word perfection. I use the word progress.
Okay. Yes.
You can use perfection. You could be progressing to perfection. But I think if you start with the premise that there is something to be achieved that does not exist except in the divine being, perfection, then I think that element of, if you like, disappointment, disheartening, discouragement, that will be out of this. Because like you said, I was saying this briefly to you, I don't play cricket anymore, but I used to watch it. But I heard from people that play that the longer you're at the crease, which means the longer you are batting, which means you're constantly having to face the onslaught of somebody who's trying to hit your wickets or this thing right at the back of you, the more concentration you need.
Okay.
It's not a matter of driving for a long period of time and relaxing because the car is on cruise control and, hey, you know where you're going. I've been on this road so many times. With cricket, you don't know what's coming next. It may be that you've been there a long time, but the reality of it is, if you look at marriage like that as well, to say the uncertainty is actually something pleasant, something that is a nice challenge, something that helps me become a better self. Something that doesn't baffle me or makes me feel very, if you like, intimidated, but I smile at it because Allah is giving me an opportunity to improve myself. Why would I complain about that?
Beautiful.
If that first element of a marriage is taqwa, and that's what I wanted to talk about, the 10 T's, and inshallah we'll try and go through all of these. I took this one from one of the very renowned sheikhs of the UK. I like this approach because I think we need to put things into bullet points.
Sure.
I think if we have a long, tedious conversation and people don't see much in the way of what can I take home from here, I would say start with the fear of Allah as the basis of your marriage.
Okay.
Allah Ta'ala says, and we hear this in the khutbah of nikah all the time. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. O you who believe, practice your deen, practice this element of your, if you like, existence. And because it's being done in nikah, it's really a prelude to how nikah, how this relationship should be. Basically, the fear of Allah. Basically, the recognition that I'm going to be watched 24/7.
Right.
So I think that first T I would put there is Think of your relationship as something that will not continue nicely if you don't have a pleasant presence of Allah. Allah is present in this relationship.
Right. Right.
I cannot be unkind to her. As we often hear, nobody will really know how you treat your partner emotionally. If you withdraw, nobody will know. If you say some subtle things that only she understands or he understands, nobody will know. So I would say the first thing I would like all of us to say is, I know Allah is watching. I also know the first relationship created on this universe is in fact a husband and wife.
Right.
Adam and Eve, Adam and Hawa, their first relationship is, so it can't be an unimportant relationship.
Yeah.
It has to be something that so if I'm investing a lot of time, this is the second T I'll take on,
Okay.
is if I'm investing a lot of time in my profession, I'm investing a lot of time in my personal pursuits, like for example, physical fitness, or I have a lot of outside interest, nothing wrong with that. But proportionality, time for my spouse, dedicated time. Okay, it's only 10 minutes. Okay, maybe it's something that we do together. Maybe we cook together. Maybe we watch a movie together. Maybe we just hold hands together and talk about old times. But that dedicated time she or he must, I believe, have if marriage is going to last a long time.
Quality time.
It has to be. Quality is described simply by the fact that both of you are enjoying it. It can't be a one-way street.
Okay.
This idea that I talk about what I like. So I made a point in the 30 odd years that I practiced, don't bring your work home. That's not what her interest should. If she wants to, first of all, confidentiality means that I can't talk about anything from work anyway. But even if I could, why contaminate that space with something that has nothing to do with the relationship? Is not going to prosper because I treated somebody well outside. It's going to prosper because I treat the person in front of me well.
So then let me just ask a quick question, and I'll let you get through the remaining eight T's. But in terms of giving that time, and as you said, and I think this will help a lot of the professionals out there, how then do you not bring that work environment home? For a lot of the professionals, either in the corporate world or in the professional setting, whatever you may be, or just the honest to goodness, you've had a hard day at work, right? And you want to blow off some steam. How then do you take the first two things into perspective and then put them into your life? Meaning that, look, God is there, God is watching, right? And I have to be the best version of myself for God and also for my spouse.
Yeah.
But I've had a hard day at work.
Right.
What can I do? Do I just let it all loose? Do I talk about it? Do I not talk about it? Obviously for confidentiality, as you said, and whatnot, being that professional you are. So give us some practical tips, and then we'll go on to point number 3. But just quickly give us some practical tips. Again, we want this episode to be as practical as possible.
Absolutely. It's interesting that when we talk about what we talk with our spouses, because somebody could realistically say, okay, I don't watch movies. I don't particularly care for cricket. I don't have a big likeness for what she's cooking. So I have to find something.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would say, Brother Mushtaq, that the more we spend that quality time with our spouses, the more easier this conversation will become. Not only that, but it will flow naturally. You will not have to make up, if you like, a topic to talk about. Because you could say, I have to think of something to talk about. No, if that wavelength is developed to the extent that you both know that he needs to let some steam off, or she's had a tough day with her children, you both know that your faces should let you know how you are feeling. The Prophet ﷺ, his emotional intelligence is such that he can tell when Aisha is upset with him. How does that happen? That happens because a deep understanding is developed between two human beings, remembering that one of them is a favorite human being of Allah, and that he is getting wahi, revelation, directly from God. But he never loses touch with his wives. And this is not just with her. We hear that also when he returns from the cave after getting the first wahi and comes and talks to his wife about what? He says, I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah, he's opening up, right?
The most blessed human being in the world is scared of having been caught by something that he doesn't know what it is.
Right.
Again, I would say, if you have developed that time importance and had many conversations, hopefully the easy ones, the difficult ones would become possible.
Excellent point.
Because you will not be able to suddenly bring up a complex issue if the normal everyday conversation doesn't exist? How do you suddenly open up a conversation when the person doesn't know what your wavelengths are? What makes you, if you like, smile?
Yeah.
What makes you relax? What, in other words, lets you literally unburden without having to breach any confidentiality? You don't have to talk about actual events. You can just say, I had a hard day. I really need a hug. You could,
There you go.
right?
Right.
Nothing stopping
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely.
You could say, today a smile that you gave me really made me feel like a superman or a superwoman, whatever. But the point is, your spouse and my spouse should feel that we really do have that special connection with them. That doesn't happen by watching a movie. That doesn't happen by reading a clip. That happens because the heart and the mind are connected in a manner where really the best of you, it doesn't have to be the best of you. You're not acting for anybody, but your spouse knows that you are an honest, trustworthy. You know what that also does? These conversations develop what I call the trust. That's the third T.
Okay.
It's a big,
Excellent
it's
segue.
actually,
There you go.
trust is what is more important in my mind. That's why when I hear people say, I love you, I said, no, do you trust me?
Yes.
Because love can be a very fluid word. Unfortunately, it's hyper-used in this society, unfortunately. I'm not saying it's wrong. You should say that you love your wife or your spouse. Nothing wrong with that. But along with that, she should know that you trust her.
Right.
And she trusts you. And that trust, again, will develop as you deal with life together. There's no magic formula here.
Right.
Trust element. And I can personally say that a lot of complex things that follow in life will be little bit less complex because you trust each other.
Yeah.
You actually have a deep respect for each other's, if you like, judgment in a nice way. You know that your partner doesn't mean anything but the best for you.
Right.
Literally, as I say, 4 eyes see with 2. You literally see one vision. You have 4 eyes, but you actually see one vision.
Okay.
That doesn't happen overnight.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
are actually able to see the, if you like, the situation for what it is, the way you see it. I'm not saying it necessarily. So I would say the third T, very importantly, is trust.
So let's unpack this then, Dr. Rashid. For trust to develop. And again, and it's 2025. You know, everyone is so busy. You know, wife and husband and wife, they're both working, holding down full-time jobs. Kids are there. They're either going to school, off to college, off to university. You know, wife is working long hours into the day. Husband likewise. You know, sometimes there will be miscommunications, no communications. You just get busy. Oh, honey, I'm sorry I didn't call. I should have called. You know, hey, Abdul, you know, where are you? Like, come on, it's you know, we're expecting you. Like, oh, you know, Khadija, I haven't, blah 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 blah. Right?
Yeah.
There's endless scenarios here.
Yeah.
But to develop that trust, give us another practical, you know, tip, a pro tip. How can you develop that trust? It's all well and good to say trust is a fundamental building block. Okay, great.
Sounds like a cliche,
But
yeah.
how can we develop that trust? Give us some nuggets of wisdom.
I think some of the things that I have learned over a period of many years is be careful with what you talk. Your conversation, my conversation actually lets your partner see a lot about you.
Okay.
So describing another human being, for example, let's say I am upset with somebody, but the choice of words really lets the other person see what is my expression of that dislikeness. How do I actually deal with something that I don't particularly agree with? The Prophet ﷺ did disagree with people. He did find some people very, if you like, distasteful, downright dishonest even.
Okay.
But you notice that he never publicly rebukes anybody.
Right.
You will notice in his seerah that there is no public rebuke of a Muslim or a non-Muslim.
Okay.
He actually sends very upright statements to people that are, within inverted commas, their states heads. The king of Rome, Heraclius, the emperor of Rome, rather, Heraclius, and then the king of Persia, right?
Right.
Khosros, and then other dignitaries. And you never see him lose his tone with them because he believes, and he tells us, that these are the honored people of other nations. Similar thing when I hear people talk about somebody who's not doing so well in life. I myself see, okay, that person is not doing well, but you are. Within inverted commas, you consider yourself to be better than that person in some shape or form. You shouldn't, because that's what leads to all kinds of arrogant behaviors.
Right.
But the talk that you use, the conversational words that imply that that person is not done well, also indicates that this is something you could do in other situations too.
Okay.
So your spouse will derive a lot of trust by saying, my husband, my wife does not use derogatory words for another human being.
Got it.
Whether I agree with them or disagree with them. So trust, one big element of trust is, the second element of trust is fulfilling one's promises. That's a very big one. And unfortunately, I have to say, my wife is watching this, that when I said, honey, I'll be home in 15, she said, he'll be home in 2.5 hours.
Right.
And this over a period of time can erode that trust.
Yeah.
It's not something that I'm saying with any pride. I'm just saying we all suffer from these without realizing. Trust is not, like you said, it's not some concept you buy in a store.
Yeah.
It's not something you can just one fine day say, today I'm trusted. It's actually, I would say, it takes a long time to develop, but it's actually, unfortunately, very easy to lose this trust.
Yeah. 100%.
So that is why I would say to those who are watching, please be mindful of your statements and your promises in particular. The Prophet ﷺ, I bring this example because he's the best role model as far as all of us are concerned as Muslims. He is Sadiq wal Amin, truthful and trustworthy. How is it possible that we can become better husbands and better spouses, and we forego these very basic principles?
Right.
So I would say trust and yes, truthfulness are interlinked. They're married to each other.
Yeah.
There is no, what I would say, rocket science here that say, oh, really? Yes, truthfulness does develop trustworthiness.
Yeah.
Big time.
I'll also mention a current example, and I mentioned Muhammad Ali. The as all the kids nowadays say, the GOAT, greatest of all time. They've turned it into an acronym. But if you look at Muhammad Ali and who he was as a person, as a Muslim, as a boxer, as a U.S. citizen, he really was a great package. Right. So just one example, and there's so many famous quotes online, memes and all of that. But one of the famous quotes that always stands with me is that and I'm paraphrasing here. I just want to use this quote as an example to illustrate your point. Point number one, and that is how you deal with, say, a hostess, a host, a waiter. Okay, the wait staff, as they say. How you deal with that person. If you deal with them rudely, then is that your true self, right? Because they're a waiter, because they're waiting tables, and then you're like at your own table because they're all high rollers or very, very fancy VIPs or important people or people of your same profession. You're dealing with them as like, oh, okay, well, and nothing happened. Like, come on. That is the measure of a person. That is the measure of a woman, measure of a man. How do you deal with someone who is just doing a 9-to-5 job, waiting tables, right? Point number one. Point number two is that concept of, say what you will do, don't, and we're all guilty of this. We're all guilty of it. Where you say, honey, I'll be home in 15. Yeah, I'm guilty of that myself. Okay, it happens to the best of us. But another small example, and I'm really trying to connect the dots here. And I've used this example in the past. When Muhammad Ali, when he carried around a lighter, right? He didn't smoke, but he carried around that lighter because anytime he came into a situation which could have potentially compromised his deen, he would actually light that lighter, hold his hand and be like, man, I cannot even withstand the heat of this little cigarette lighter flame for 4 or 5 seconds. How can I withstand the fires of Jahannam, of hell? Right? So if ever you are in a situation where it's like, you know what? No one is watching. Yeah, Allah's watching, but I can always ask for forgiveness later. I'm playing, the proverbial devil's advocate here, So just to illustrate the point, but Allah is watching, to your point. So taqwa, right? Number two, if you need something to remind you, hey, you know what? I said I'd be home in 15, but Hun realizes that it's going to be 2.5. So I got 2.5 hours to kill. So this is what Muhammad Ali used to do. Literally, he used to kind of remind himself, as a boxer, he was in the spotlight all the time. He had access to everything, even in that time. You can just imagine some things are timeless. Women, money, drugs, blah, 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 all the haram, that's timeless. That doesn't go away anywhere. But what he realized was, this will help me stay away from all that haram. So I could keep true. What did he do? He went home. He went home. He said the hardest part of being a boxer is not, the fame, the glory is like, what do you do after with your time?
Yeah.
What do you do after with your time? So please, now.
That's actually a very good way of thinking of what I was thinking also. At one of the T's is technology. And this technology part is really, I've spoken to people that have said, my husband looks at this phone more than he looks at me.
Oh.
These are absolutely devastating statements.
Yeah.
And they make one wonder whether this technology is really not literally become a wall between two people that are sitting next to each other. I've had occasions when people have been texting to their other friend while their spouse is sitting next to them. How devastating and how disturbing that trend is, irrespective of whether the spouse finds out. This is the part that I was going to say, that we have to be very careful with what takes our time. Technology and time together can be a good thing. You can be watching something that's very elevating. You could be watching a bayan that brings you closer to Allah. You could be watching, like I was watching the series in Ramadan, Beyond the Grave, something that really makes you think deeply. So I'm not against it in a generic way, not at all. It's here to stay.
Right.
We cannot
Right.
divorce it from our lives.
Right.
But I think like a knife which the surgeon uses to cure and the robber uses to kill, I think we have to be very meticulous and very thoughtful about what we do. This is where mindfulness comes in.
Okay.
To say, be very mindful of your time with technology. If I can use that term as saying these two T's are going to go together. What you do with your time, especially if it is somehow based around technology that takes away the trust of your partner,
Yeah.
then potentially it affects your relationship with Allah. Because remembering, Allah will forgive his huquq if he wants to. And inshallah, he's Rahim and he's Rahman. But he will not be able to remove the haqq that my wife might state that day, I didn't get my rights. Remembering the Prophet ﷺ, a very famous hadith has said, who's the muflis? Who's the bankrupt? And the Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, the one that doesn't have dirham and dinar or dollar for this terminology. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no. The muflis, the bankrupt, is really the one who comes with much, if you like, ritual good deeds. He did salah, he did saum, he fasted, he did sadaqah, he gave extra, he went to many umrahs, he did all this ritualistic worship, but he did not take care of his own family, for example.
Right.
His children did not learn Islam because of him. His wife remained deprived of his presence because he was so busy with things.
Right.
What if that person that I claim to be the one that is the one that's in my life is the first one to complain about me on the day of judgment? I wouldn't like that situation to happen to anybody.
Right.
So I would say technology, be very careful with. Be mindful of it, like I was saying. Because I think this is something that creeps in. It's an addictive behavior, let's face it. And I was reading very recently that its addiction is now taken over pretty much every other addiction there is, including the addiction to medication, to drugs, and even to food.
Okay.
So this really is a very serious player,
Yeah.
and we should not underestimate it. So I
Right.
think I've said 70 so far. I'll just go over them just so that the audience
Please,
don't
let's
lose
recap.
track.
Yeah.
One is our taqwa,
Yes.
our relationship with Allah. Second is our time.
Yeah.
Thirdly is trustworthiness.
Yes.
Fourthly is our tongue, or what we say.
Yes.
And when I say what I say, I also mean what we write, because that's also effectively, you know how people convey information without checking the authenticity?
Yeah.
That's actually really going to come also very heavily against people. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, it's enough for a person to be called a liar that he does not check the authenticity before he passes it on. So our tongues are going to be one of the very serious reasons why a lot of us will find ourselves. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us all, myself
Ameen.
first.
Ameen.
And may Allah let us be mindful of what we are doing with that. So tongue is another one.
Yes.
The fifth one I said was really our technology part,
Yes.
how we deal with technology. And then trustworthiness was the sixth one. And as I said, time spent well with mindfulness about what we say and how we spend, if you like, time with technology will bring that trust in.
Right.
Trust is, they are all interconnected.
Oh, yes.
I want to just jump into there on something I call tea together, TEA. Tea means food together.
Sure.
It basically means spending time preparing food together.
Okay.
Husbands often look at me to say, husbands preparing food? So, well, the Prophet ﷺ is the best human being that we take as a role model. Here we are hearing when she was asked, his wife, what did he do in the house? He was milking the goat, which is the modern version of using the microwave or cooking on the pan. Because obviously there was no cooked food in that time, but there was, but not to the extent that we have now. So basically he was fixing his shoes. He was making his own bed. So it means he spent time doing things that the modern man perhaps doesn't find so enticing. But I go as far as saying, look, if you want a working wife, if you want a professional woman that makes six-figure sums, you will have to understand that she will not be able to do some of the things that the, within inverted commas, domesticated woman of the last century was able to do. And many modern women, in all honesty, if they are working a 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 job, they won't have that ability to come and cook food, etc. So do yourself a favor. Do this tea, and which could be dinner also. I'm just using this as a terminology for teas. Do tea together, cooking and eating. It's amazing how when people eat together and they, if you like, look at each other and enjoy what they have done together, as opposed to eating out, because many people say, well, we eat together. I'm sorry, that doesn't come anywhere close to having that love and connection and the concern that, there's now science that's saying that touch produces these hormones that are happy hormones.
Right.
For crying out loud, why did we have to wait this long to discover this? Didn't the Prophet ﷺ eat with his own fingers?
Yeah.
Didn't he lick his fingers after he ate? Didn't he tell us to pick up particles of food that fell and eat them?
Right.
Where, for God's sake, is our ability to obey and to be his, if you like, true ummatis, if we have to have science confirm that what he said was actually very relevant?
Right.
So tea would be the 8th point I would make. Drink tea and yes, eat together.
Yeah. I love that point. And I'll tell you why, Dr. Rashid. It's like, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. And we have, producer Kashif in the room, and we also have intern Musa as well. But I think for the next podcast show, and I'm just going to throw out a line to Brother Kaisar. He's actually overseas right now. But if he is watching, then let's do a happy, strong family cook-off show or cooking show. And I'll tell you why. And it should be husband-wife. Okay, it 100% should be husband and wife, so that you can see, look, this is how you build romance. I'm going to go out into like the dunya, but this is the stuff of every rom-com. This is the stuff of every romantic comedy. You're laughing and smiling. And you're like, Brother Mushtaq, I don't know you anymore. Please
I've not heard
stop. Like, so this is the stuff of every, every romantic movie. You're cooking, you're making something, he's like sauteing stuff on a pan, she's pouring the oil, the water into the glasses, or the oil into the whatever, sauteing the mushrooms. But the point is here, it definitely builds that strong relationship, because you're doing something, and yes, sparks fly. Hopefully it reignites the chemistry. I'm talking in very kind of almost metaphoric terms, maybe a little bit poetic, but practical at the same time. Look, at the end of the day, like you said, we're all now, it's 2025. And if we need to remind anyone, and please, if you are watching blog influencers like Andrew Tate, get off your high horse. Okay, it's 2025. Let's go back to the basics. Like Dr. Zaihan said, the Prophet ﷺ was the best of all creation. Yes, he was a man, alhamdulillah. He was a prophet, alhamdulillah. He was a statesman, alhamdulillah. He was, fit. He looked after himself. He was a military strategist. He was a nation builder. He literally built the city of Medina with his hands. He was the entire complete package. Okay, I could go on. And the point here is for him to, like you say, do the dishes, do the laundry, do the house chores. And if it was done back then, then bro, have I got a message for you? If you are a red-blooded man and you're saying to yourself, no, I'm going to listen to Andrew Tate, it's 2025, I'm the man of the house, you got it all wrong. The man of the house, the best man that was ever to have walked this earth, if he did all of this 1,400 years ago, then I'm sorry, Andrew Tate is not your example of how you should live your life. Should not. I'm just going to address that head on. Okay, educate yourself, read the books of the Sira, read up and educate yourself. Doesn't matter if you're Muslim, non-Muslim. People like that, they just do it literally to make a name for themselves. And we're all victims to that. We watch and it feeds the system. That in and of itself is a separate podcast for another day. So we don't have to unpack that anymore. Please continue.
Number 8 would be what I call troublemakers. There is a tea called Troublemaker.
Oh,
No
okay.
marriage will be this romantic Romeo and Juliet version. It won't be. We all know that there are troublesome family members. There are people that have known us for a long time, friends within inverted commas. And these people don't always sadly understand that a new relationship means that things have to be adjusted a little bit. The wife should not be alone with the children while you're going out chilling, unless that's a prearranged thing, which she can do too. I'm not implying that the husband and wife cannot have me time. Yes, they can. They should. Everybody should. The Prophet ﷺ had me time. He used to go out. Where else did this wahi descend on him? He was sitting alone in this cave. He wasn't with a ton of people. His family wasn't there. Because this reflection time, this self-reflection time is important. For any relationship to develop, one must have time with oneself, assessing the self. Tazkiyatun nafs, the older version of it. I self-analyze. I have the ability to criticize myself.
Right.
I look at myself more critically than I look at anybody else.
Yeah.
Because that will allow me to develop. It takes, I can tell you this from personal experience, it takes a lot of courage to be able to take criticism and smile and say, you know what, maybe this person hates me, but maybe he actually means well.
Yeah.
Maybe 99% of what he said is irrelevant, but 1% is relevant.
Yeah.
This ability to self-evaluate will allow you to see the troublemakers for what they really are.
Some of my unmarried friends, again, I make no bones about it. I'm 50 years old. I don't dye my beard.
Age has nothing to do with it, Brother Bistaq. We've talked about this before.
But so for my friends who are unmarried, they're using these Muslim dating apps and they say, oh, I've been through therapy. In therapy. I've done therapy. Look, to your point, you just self-analyze. You just have to have a moment of self-reflection.
Yeah.
Okay. If you need to go to mental therapy, by all means, please. And we've discussed that on various past episodes.
Yeah.
That's not the point here. The point here is just take a moment to yourself and self-reflect.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Understand yourself so that you can understand the world around you. You can understand people. You can connect with people better, and so on and so forth.
I would say just on that point itself, self-reflection. So people often ask me, what does that actually mean? I said, I make a log of how many times I was angry today.
Okay.
A log.
Okay.
An emotion log. Because
Ah.
nobody has to see it.
Yeah.
How many times did I think bad of somebody? How many times was I able to smile despite what I heard was not to my likeness? Because I saw the deeper picture. Because I saw, look, somebody cut me in line. Somebody wasn't the best driver on the road. Maybe his wife is giving birth to his first child. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's had a bad day at work. Maybe he just lost it. I don't know. The benefit of the doubt attitude gives a lot of leverage to good feelings.
Yeah.
We have heard again and again, to think bad of somebody, you should have 70 evidences. Implication being, you should never think bad of anybody.
Right.
Because
right.
70 times, first of all, you're not going to be able to count it. And 70 in Arabic doesn't even mean to say the actual number 70. It means innumerable times. Like we often use in English, I've told you 1,000,000 times. But we haven't told them 1,000,000 times, have we?
Good
We're
point.
just implying that we have said this repeatedly.
Yeah.
Troublemakers are just that. Troublemakers are often coming from emotional situations. They may have had a bad marriage themselves. They may have had some other situation happening. Yes, some people genuinely are malicious. They are. But that's the minority. And when we don't allow them to get into the inner space, like I see daughters speaking to moms about what's going on in their home, highly discouraged. Don't do this.
Okay.
Very bad idea. Husband deserves your highest respect. Human beings are made of very simple, very basic elements. They all need love, they all need respect, and they all need validation. This is the simple recipe. A wife, if she doesn't get told that she's the most beautiful woman in the world, regularly, me and Brother Imran, who were traveling here in the car, we had a chance to talk a few things. I said, we all need validation. Depending on where we are in life, we will also need some, if you like, reassurance.
100%.
That we are still doing well.
Yeah. 100%.
And we are still liked by our husband.
100%.
We still have these little love notes where I'd still leave it. My darling, you are the love of my life. I will marry you all over again after 39 years.
Awesome.
You have to talk in the language that people see the validity of things, not just, and words are not going to be enough. She should see it. I mean, I'm not going to go into the 5 languages, but we all know that she should receive a hug. If she does not see gifts once in a while, also it's an issue. And this, by the way, applies to the both sides. People should, the Prophet ﷺ said, tahaddu tahabbu, build love by giving.
Okay.
We're not talking about $1 million. We're talking about the emotion behind it.
The thought behind it.
Precisely. So think of those things, and troublemakers will not cause as much trouble as they sometimes, because troublemakers only really make use of that distance that they see between you. That they see that you're not building up that trust regularly. And I can tell you that we have emotional ups and downs. All of us do. I definitely do. You might feel very high, and then you might feel, unfortunately, down in the dumps. That's where me and you have to, and this podcast is not going to be the time to do it. We should have things that build up our emotions. When I said emotion logs, I don't mean to say just look at them and feel sorry for yourself. No. I should look at this log and say, should I have been angry at this?
Yeah.
Should I have stayed angry that long at it?
Right.
Should I have really gotten that much angry about it?
Right.
Should I have taken so long to stay angry?
Yeah.
You can look at all of those things, and you can slowly come out of this pit to say, you know what? Why am I spending so much time in the dumps down there? I've got other things to offer. I've got so much other valuable things going on. This individual who was not nice to me today, for example, has also been a very nice person in the past. I don't have to focus on the not nice part, do I?
Right.
So troublemakers deal with that. Similarly, temper.
I'll let you get to temper, but we've already crossed the halfway mark.
Crossed the mark? Okay.
So let's get to some questions.
For sure.
Professor Kashif, please.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. So yes, we do have a lot of questions. Whenever Dr. Rashid's on for marriage, we have a lot of questions.
Which is why I wanted to get through the questions. We'll get to what you just mentioned. So
they're pre-submitted, so let's get to them. So these came in through Instagram earlier. So in order to have a successful start to marriage, what goals couples should set right from the beginning?
Jazakallah khair. I think that's a very valuable point. I would say go back to the basics. This is why I mentioned taqwa at the beginning. Just emphasize the 3 ayahs of khutbatul nikah. Say, what was the purpose of this marriage to begin with? Yes, it's a union of 2 sacred souls. Yes, I agree with that. Yes, the desire is to have a good life. Yes, the desire is to fulfill our desires in the halal way. All of that. But what is the methodology for this? I've heard people who are getting married without any prep at all. None. No workshops, no reading text, no sitting with an uncle, no talking to a sheikh, really taking this very serious journey as a joke. It's almost like it was an afterthought. It can't be. It should be getting as much importance as any career would. It may not require 5 years in medical school or 4 years in anything. I'm not implying that, but I'm saying regular investment in acquiring knowledge. It will actually give you an idea that it's extremely important to do your research well, and that the superficiality of things should not be taken to be what will last you 30 years. If that's the plan, it has to be deeper than that. And yes, again, this will not unfortunately be the time, but if I was to look at 3 things, one is taqwa of Allah. Recognize the purpose of marriage. Secondly, look at the prophetic examples. What did the Prophet ﷺ do? You know and I know that there is a marriage described in the Quran where Musa alayhi salam, after he makes his dua, Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. He has crossed the border illegally into Madian. He has helped 2 young women with getting water for their animals.
Right.
And then he lays down under a tree completely exhausted. He's not sure what to do next, but he makes this dua, oh Rabb, I'm now needing your help because I'm a faqir. Have that attitude when it comes to marriage. Ask Allah, Ya Allah, I need your help.
Beautiful.
Guide me.
Yeah.
Ya Allah, I don't know what to do. I'm making this big plan, but I don't know this right. Don't be shy asking. Don't be shy investing. And thirdly, please regularly invest in your marriage. Please don't take things for granted after you've started to say, I got in the car, I said, you check your fuel gauge, don't you, if you're traveling a distance?
Right.
Why do you check it? You filled it when you started because you're aware that it's being used up. Marriage is no different. Emotions need to be regularly nourished. The soul regularly needs to be brought back to that high up. Take time off. Chill, relax. First 2 years, understand that this is a big challenge. The entire society that we live in is anti-marriage. We know that. These institutions are sadly being decimated.
Dismantled, yeah.
So if that is the case, Brother Mushtaq, how can we take this very serious project as some sort of an afterthought? I'm sorry,
point.
I've made a
Good
bit of a
point.
long statement, but I think you get the point.
No, excellent point. Excellent points. Excellent points.
Jazakallah
Kashif,
khair.
please.
I just want to ask a follow-up question, Dr. Rashid. When
Yeah.
we're talking about like early marriage and couples just getting married, that they're newlyweds, one thing we hear a lot is that for couples that where there are issues and is that they seek help too late, right?
Yeah.
But once, so what do you recommend for new couples? Because you're new to marriage, you don't know how to seek help. It seems like embarrassment. But if couples are having issues early, what would you recommend that they do in that situation? Because mostly what's happening is being ignored. Like people are too embarrassed to seek help, and it just snowballs into a worse situation than.
No,
So
that's a very practical thing. I have witnessed it also. And that's why, because again, my medical background makes me think what I'm about to say. Think of something valuable like a plant. If you put a plant in the ground, you wouldn't ignore it, would you? You would make sure that the right soil was there. Well, what is the right soil for marriage? Lot of knowledge, information, thoroughly researched with each other if possible. Marriage should not mean to say completion. Marriage should mean to say commencement. It's the commencement of a long journey. And yes, I hope, inshallah, that there'll be contemplation. Yes, I hope there'll be compassion. Yes, I hope there'll be some criticism. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But use this literally like, this is an English term. Some people see opportunities as difficulties. Others see difficulties as opportunities.
Yes.
A lot of this is how marriages are. If you don't assume that all is well since I have now signed on the dotted line and I put that ring on, I've said, you've just passed your G1, buddy. You're just starting this journey. Expect difficulty.
Right.
Expect there'll be road bumps.
Right.
Yes, this is how every journey is. Did you jump to the deep end when you started swimming?
Yeah.
You started in the very shallow end and you asked for help when you found yourself lost. Why would marriage be? A lot of this, I believe, is the taboo that's built around seeking help. To answer Brother Kashif's question, a lot of this is about saying, I'm invincible. I'm no need for any. I would say, consider yourself very vulnerable and accept that you are new at this.
Yeah.
And you will make better.
100%. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Nothing wrong. And
that mindset needs to be addressed.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with I mean, look, we're almost halfway through the year, as I keep saying, 2025. But even you've seen we're in Markham, Ontario, Canada. Bell Canada, the big telco, they've done a lot with Mental Health Day. So there's been a lot to dismantle the taboo in general for seeking help, right? So to your point, if you realize your marriage is going south, it's getting rocky, you need help, start it. Ask for help.
And resources should be, again, to that point, just not to interrupt what you're saying, our masajid owe this to our couples. I don't believe that we have these huge institutions that cannot offer solutions to people that are their musallis. But even if they don't come to the masjid regularly, the hospital is there for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't look at somebody who came the first time after 30 years and they have an advanced cancer. I don't look at them with that. I look at it as an opportunity to help them.
Yeah.
I do feel sorry for them. I do wish they came early. I do wish they had done a little bit more to prevent what has happened. But Brother Mushtaq, at that time, they're not needing my disciplining. They need my compassion and my help.
Yeah.
If we as elders can put this out, our youngsters see us, and this is again about communication. You were saying this earlier. If we have enough of these spaces where our elders have demonstrated an attitude that we love our youngsters and we realize that they are a responsibility, not just so they're economically well off, not so that they have achieved the highest professional, but also that they have actually been assisted in this very difficult project called marriage. I think if we can demonstrate that as elders, because I don't believe it's just the youngsters. Right. I do believe it's the attitude they're seeing from the elders, where the most emphasis is being placed on, well, if you don't make big bucks, if you're not a surgeon or you're not a physician, well, your life is a failure. We have to come out of this paradigm. This is a very, it's a very demeaning way of doing things.
It's a two-way street, for sure. Producer Kashif?
Jazakallah khair. So we have, I assume it's coming from someone that might be single, that marriage sounds all fun and fairy tale like, but it gets so boring. How to make sure it doesn't?
I think this is again unrealistic expectations. Expectations, I mean, watching too many movies and seeing too many, what I would say, soap operas. That's what this approach comes from, unfortunately. Maybe not, that's maybe not all. Maybe it's the conversations that take place. That's what I was saying to my brother as we were traveling here. I said, in our gatherings, and there's a lot of them, like most times when I ask people to come and join something that I think might be beneficial, the most common excuse, Brother Mushtaq, I get is, oh, there is a shadi, oh, there's a marriage, oh, I'm traveling to have this gathering, that gathering. No problem. People have social interaction. They should. But what actually takes place in these social interactions? How often do relevant topics become a part of this family conversation? Like I said, we have to take this bull by the horn. We have to understand that our youngsters, this youngster who's asking, or somebody who's not married is again asking because I think he or she might have seen something to say, I thought marriage was that Romeo and Juliet thing that I saw.
Yeah.
I thought it happens like the prince of such and such country does, or this other. But hey, the reality of life is we have to cook, we have to clean, we have to. There was a couple that emigrated here from the Middle East, I talked about many years ago. The reason they returned back is because the wife was not used to cleaning her own washroom. Can you imagine, Brother Mushtaq? It's a huge reality test that I think a lot of us really have to go through. We never expect our boss to be perfect the day we arrive there, do we? We don't expect a movie-like situation there to say, my boss will love me and I will love the job. We are ready for the challenges that are going to come.
Yeah.
I would suggest we take marriage more seriously.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let me offer a different point of view, and regardless, like you said earlier, regardless of age, but I think a lot of perhaps what has informed this person, I'm just guessing here, is again going back to the social medias of the world, right? The TikToks and the Instagrams and the stories and blah blah blah. It's, everything is all fun, but where I'm really going with this is, as you said, social media addiction.
Yeah.
Because we've been trained. Now it's been 20 years since Google, YouTube, they've all been around. Generations have now been brought up on YouTube and on Google, blah, 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 on your cell phone, basically.
Yeah.
So what has that done to the mind? Okay. And your dopamine, we've discussed this in past podcasts, where everything's a quick hit, everything is quick. And look, you look at YouTube shorts, my own children do this. And I caution them all the time. Look, you're watching something for 5 seconds, you get that quick hit. Oh man, that's awesome. Okay, next. And I think a lot of people now, that's literally how they view their life. Yeah. That everything has to be that quick hit of fun.
Yeah.
So, you know what? You can do that. I'm just putting it out there. If you find a partner that is like in sync with you, that wants to have fun. But to your point, just like life, not everything is all about fun. Yeah. Sometimes it's about finding that deeper meaning, that deeper connection, raising a family, working, focusing on your professional career, your professional goals, focusing on yourself, self-discovery, all of that.
The title of this talk, this podcast that Brother Kashif sent me was How to Get to Jannah.
Yeah.
I think we should bring that afterlife concept in a mild, in a very gentle way into this conversation by saying, my brother, my sister in Islam, what is this all about at the end of the day? You are taking these 50, 60 years of your life to be way too important. They are important, but they're going to decide your eternity. You may not have realized holding your tongue back. The Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith said, the one who does not argue, even though he or she is right, can prepare his house in Jannah with me. What other incentive do we need when we hear that not arguing for the sake of argument is actually very beneficial, both in this and the next one? Conversations don't go very far if there is only one hand. Clapping cannot be done with one hand for very long. You can thump the table, you can make a lot of noise, but the reality is the other partner will realize my partner does not take any interest in these negative, not going anywhere conversations. Preserve your energy. And I would go as far as saying we have a lot of spare energy because we are not using this energy in useful means. Why don't we walk for half an hour every day? It would really bring out the positive energy and the, what I would call the nice hormones that you mentioned earlier on. It will improve the possibility of my focus. It will actually give my memory a gentle boost as well. Why don't we just, and a lot of, I would say, negativity would perhaps be better dealt with if we read more, if we took more time. These unrealistic expectations of life, you quite rightly said, are coming from exposing ourselves too much to the media, where a lot of it is sadly fake. A lot of it is made up. People show the best side of their lives to the world, but insides are maybe not so happy. So I would say to this youngster, or perhaps not so young person, don't lose fact that marriage may be the reason you enter Jannah.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you are patient with all that goes on. Why are we given so much instructions about marriage anyway? Why does the Prophet ﷺ say so much about maintaining? Why is the first relationship, as we mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, marriage, that is husband and wife? Why is this something that will lead you to Jannah? Because you will deal with so many adverse situations. The idea is never a fun and games thing. This is not a party. This is it is a party also, please don't get me wrong. It's not just a suffering game. But I think only to imply that if it's not fun, I'm not going to do it, I think you will find yourself falling into a very deep abyss with that thinking.
Okay. Producer Kashif, let's get to another
Jazakallah
question,
khair.
please. We got a few still on the board. So
I just want to add one. Like me and my wife were talking yesterday, we should get Wonderland season passes this year for our kids or not. And it was interesting. One of the things we came up with is one of the few places left where we can teach our children about patience and waiting in a 2-hour line and letting them be bored, right? So to your point, so it's like, so we just came to that conclusion that it's like there's not much else left where we're teaching them patience and we're teaching them on how to be bored. I'm putting quotation marks around it. So it's an interesting discussion. But yeah, here's another question that came up is, so 41 years have passed after marriage. Now I'm 57 and he is 64. Still no happy wedded life, but both fear Allah. Now this is because we see this a lot now where the generation before us, like they're getting older now and they had different priorities. Maybe they were immigrating. They didn't build that connection. Now we see a lot of aunts and uncles that are older than us, sort of living this sort of just life, and the children are seeing it too and questioning, why do I want to get married if this is what it ends up with? So what advice do you have for older couples that now they're just alone with each other, right? The kids are gone, the jobs are gone, everything's gone. But so what advice do you have for them?
It's a very relevant question, absolutely. I'm reminded of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh. A man came to him and he said, I don't love my wife anymore.
Okay.
I don't want to be with her.
Okay.
Sayyidina Umar said, since when did marriage become love only? It is about love and mercy. It's rahma wal mawadda, as the Quran describes. So he said, look, marriages don't last because you love somebody. Marriages last because you realize the other person has given what they can. Or perhaps they didn't ever want to give as much as I wanted. But hey, we've been together 40 years.
Yeah.
There must have been something good going here.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember somebody saying to me, I'm so tired of my wife. She's always at this point where we both end up, basically, we get to the same point all the time. So I said, that sounds like she's very predictable. He said, yes, she is. So I said, after 20 years, aren't you used to that? Aren't you able to accept that this individual will not change? Aren't you able to have some softness in your heart? Look, what did she save you from? People say, oh, she didn't do anything from me. She saved you from falling into haram relationship.
Yeah.
She gave you maybe hundreds of meals that were tasty. She maybe saved you from backbiting about another individual.
Yeah.
Maybe you have some beautiful children. See, this idea of focusing on one aspect of it, we're not happy. Well, I would ask somebody, define happiness, please, for me.
Right.
Because if you don't get this basic premise right, what is happiness at the end? The Prophet ﷺ said, the one who laughs a lot will cry on the day. So don't laugh too much. There's more than one hadith that says about the Prophet ﷺ saying to Sahaba, you are laughing as if there's no next life.
Yeah.
As you know, he didn't ever laugh with his mouth open. There is a reason behind this very wise ways of acting. I would say to this young woman, I don't consider 57 to be old, by the way. There's a person who's biologically old and then there's a person who's physiologically old.
Okay.
What do I mean? You could have gray hair, but you could be serving the whole community.
Sure.
You could have 70 years behind you, but you are still able to get up and make breakfast for
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I would say that the people start focusing too much on themselves. This me, myself, and I, shaitanic version of things, unfortunately, can even affect you when you are 60. It can. I would say become a person who serves, become a person who goes outwards and helps others.
Right.
Become a part of community. If you're 60 years old, chances are you have an experience of a lot of situations. So even if you're not personally very happy, you could spread happiness. You could be the reason why others develop enriched lives. The Prophet ﷺ has given us a very beautiful example where he said land of three kinds. One type of land, water falls on it and it flourishes because it's a fertile land to begin with. People benefit and the land looks beautiful. Second type of land, he said, does not have any fertility but can store water, so people come and animals come and drink from it. Third type of land, he said, water falls and just flows away. Nothing happens.
Okay.
He said people are the three kinds as well. There are people who have beneficial knowledge, benefit from it, and give it to others. There are people who have a lot of knowledge but don't benefit themselves, but the others do. And thirdly, he said there are people who don't have either of this. They don't have an interest in knowledge and they don't benefit from it either. So human beings are not coming in some package variety.
Right.
There is not going to be a single way of living a happy life. I would say the best happiness would be if you have performed your best. This person was saying that they are both fearful of Allah. I would say that's a very powerful statement.
There you go.
And if you have fear of Allah, this is the essence of being a Muslim. What other is Islam?
Yeah.
Khashiyatillah, the recognition that Allah is watching me. Don't do zulm on each other. Don't deprive each other of the basic rights. Respect each other, offer each other help, and be there for each other.
Yeah.
Don't lose that basics. Maybe you won't be a Bollywood kind of loving couple, but that's not always real, as we said earlier on anyway.
Powerful.
Don't look at superficial things.
Yeah.
Look at perhaps what is going on inside. Maybe a person has a lot of everything, but their heart is broken and completely alone. You don't sound like that person. So don't count your happiness in some, like I say, superficial terms.
Yeah.
Be content with what Allah has given you. If He's given you a partner that has been with you for 40 years, okay, without too much happiness. It's too late now. I wouldn't advise you to say, find somebody else. It's not. I would say be content with what you have.
Yeah.
Sayyidina Umar has also another statement where somebody came to his house because they had an argument with his wife. When they came to Sayyidina Umar's house, Umar was having an argument with his own wife, where his wife was telling him, what's up?
Okay.
This Sahabi, when he knocked the door and heard what was going on, decided to leave. Umar came to the door and said, why did you come? He said, it's okay. He didn't want to bring this up. Umar asked 3 times. And Umar is not somebody that they allow on who you can argue with.
Yeah.
He said, I came, but I heard that you have the same problem. Umar said, SubhanAllah, words that I think, Brother Mushtaq, are golden. He said, look, this woman has bore with me for the last so many years.
Yeah.
She's given me children. She cooks my food. She's content, patient with me. Can't I listen to her when she's upset?
Yeah.
Like, why do we have this, like I say, movie-like relationship in our hearts anyway?
Excellent
It's not perfection. Like I said, it's progress.
Yeah.
It's not perfection.
Yeah.
I hope that's answered the question.
Yeah. And look, to sum it up, and again, to use the another phrase, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so
Right.
please count your blessings.
Right.
Producer Kashif, let's go to the next question.
Yes, we are approaching the top of the hour, but
Yep.
there's some constant questions related to the same type of thing that have come in. So
Uh-huh.
I'll just wrap it up with maybe 2 more. And Dr. Rashid, sorry, I'm gonna rush you a bit because we are approaching. So there was a lot of questions, for example, about this one, about toxic in-laws, how to keep toxic in-laws away. They make fun of me, and when I complain about it to my husband, he ends up not doing anything. So these so in-laws relationships in general. A lot of
Yeah,
questions about
you've
in-laws.
addressed this a few times.
I mentioned it briefly. I've mentioned it again. First of all, recognize Allah Ta'ala has said in Surah Al-Mulk, I have not created death and life except that I want to see how are you when tests are put in your life, or what is ahsanu amal. Allah Ta'ala says, Alladhi khalaqal mauta wal hayata liyabluwakum ayyukum ahsanu amala. I did not create life and death except that I want to see how do you perform. Allah knows these, within inverted commas, in-laws didn't come in your life by accident. They are a part of the package. We only look sometimes at the packing, not what's inside it. But the husband never comes alone. He has a mother. He is expected to be obedient to his mother, obviously within limits. He can't obviously completely deny his wife. But I find husbands, if you like, position is a very precarious one. They are not given this administrative position for no reason. They have to keep a balance between the emotions of the wife and the respect of the mother. Yes, many husbands don't succeed. But the fact that they are not successful one day does not imply that this is a never-ending situation. I would say to the sister, you have an option. First of all, talk with your husband about this.
Yeah.
And this lady has said that she has.
Mm.
And bring this up in a manner which he is able to hear the other side of story. That's why I was implying attend workshops together.
Yeah.
Listen to these podcasts. Read books together. Increase your knowledge. Nobody is perfect the day they get married. It's work in progress, like you said. Yes, some of these challenges are tougher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. And then the second sort of a lot of questions came around in about this concept of where one person wants to invest in the marriage, make changes, but the other is not willing to change, or the other is not willing to, put the work in. So, for example, what should I do if the husband doesn't want to change and lies to you? So, for those type of situations,
here I would say that this implication somehow that I can change my partner, this is an extremely erroneous concept. You are not responsible for taking your husband to Jannah. You're not. Neither you're responsible for taking your children on that same plane to Jannah. You are obliged to create the best environment so they have difficulty doing things that will harm their relationship with Allah. Definitely. And in the process, yes, there will be many road bumps. And when people say, and I hear this often, I want to, but he doesn't want to. And I wish she was watching this. Here, the implication is somehow that you have control over another human being, or somebody else has control over somebody. I have seen people having a change of heart because, yes, a khutbah, I have seen it. It's not common, but it can happen. It's also necessary, I think, to have friends that encourage you to do all good things. I think it's extremely important to find good company. Often I find that people have company that is not really very conducive to the relationship. People have social relationships. People have relationships based on their, if you like, status. People have relationships on the basis of ethnicity, but not on the basis of to say, I want company that will help me get to Jannah.
Yeah.
I want company that will guide me towards stuff. There is an uncle that again, I think this is the result of mass immigration, which we have done in the last 30 years, like we were implying earlier, that people have come in without realizing that big counseling support we had. Where were counselors in the 70s and 80s? They didn't exist.
Right.
Your uncle was your counselor. Your neighbor was your counselor. Your good friend's dad was your counselor. Maybe somebody that was just a teacher was your counselor. So I would say all of this village concept has to also be brought back in some shape or form. So a lot of these things which sisters and brothers are handling alone can be a little bit less severe than they are. I'm sorry, time is short.
Yeah, and I think, Producer Kashif, maybe, and Dr. Zaihan, I mean, it would be amazing for you to come back and address this issue alone, because we've talked this up time and time again. And this is where I'll look into the camera and I'll say, look, guys, brothers, men, and I'll say it again and again, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, it is basically man up, okay? And to man up, to be a man, and we've discussed this in previous episodes as well, it is not perhaps your notion of what a man being is, being the dominant force in the house, and whatever I say must go. No, I'm sorry, that is an antiquated, wrong approach to being a man. Being a man is what the Prophet ﷺ had taught us. And yes, he was romantic as well. He would drink from the exact same, spot. And I'm just using this for illustrative purposes. Aisha radhiyallahu anha, there's a very famous hadith.
Yeah.
She would drink from a particular portion, and the lip marks or whatever it was, maybe lipstick or whatever, it was there on the cup, right? Yeah. He would drink from the same cup. He would literally place his lips on the same spot.
Yeah.
That is a romantic gesture.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, a man can be strong, a man can be humble, a man can be romantic, a man can do the house chores, whether your wife is working or not, whether your wife is a professional or not. But to be a proper man in 2025, 2026, or whenever you watch this video, please use the Prophet ﷺ as your guide. Again, whether you are Muslim or non-Muslim, because look, at the end of the day, I'm getting tired of, it doesn't really matter what I think anyways, at the end of the day, but this has become enough of a common occurrence that we've heard time and time again. My husband doesn't want to change. My husband this, my husband that. For God's sakes, look, marriage is an institution. Yeah. Marriage is for both wife and husband, husband and wife. And yes, as you said earlier, there are many forces at work here that are trying to literally dismantle the institution of marriage, not just for Muslims, but also for Catholics, for people of the Jewish faith, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
It's not just systematic, systematic or endemic to any one religion or faith.
Yeah.
It's happening with across the board, across the spectrum, for various reasons. This is not the point of the topic here. This is not the point of the discussion. The point of the discussion is for men, if you want to be a real man, again, I've said it and I've said it again, Andrew Tate, I don't think he's watching, and I don't really care if he's watching or not. He's not the role model you want to follow. Okay. If you have good friends, and guys, we've touched upon this briefly before, we don't really talk to one another. Yeah. Even in our own circle of guy friends, we're not talking about, oh man, my wife or my, my woman or my girl, whatever. That doesn't really happen. Yeah. Okay. And I'm not, guys are just hardwired differently. Unfortunately, that's just the way we are. Okay. When we go out, we have that me time, we do other stuff. Yeah. We're not talking about our wives. It is what it is. Yeah. So how can we develop ourselves? Like you say, educate yourself.
Oh, for sure.
Educate yourself 100%. Educate, read, watch other, go talk to an imam. Yeah. Or talk to somebody you look up to. Yeah. And be like, man, Kareem, Abdul, Chris, you've had an amazing, from what I can tell, you and Nancy, you and Fatima, you and Aisha, you've had an amazing relationship for 30 years. Yeah. How can I do that, man? What are some of your secrets? Or talk to somebody elder in the community. It's not hard. No, it's not hard.
Bring back that concept of being able to defend your actions on the day of judgment. Remember, you will be alone. Your family will potentially either help you or hinder you from entering into Jannah.
Yeah.
Bring back that concept. Maybe not every day, but maybe every Ramadan. Maybe when somebody you hear in your family has passed away, or when some other event occurs that makes you think, to say, would I not be one day in this situation where I will have to be the only one that answers this question? Let's make sure that I'm not caught out that day. It may not be something that people think every day, but as I say, it's a good idea to revise the purpose of one's marriage. I strongly recommend that people every year take a time, maybe a day, and revive their marriage and look seriously at some of these points we made. I didn't say much about tahajjud. Do the evening, the night prayer together if you can. It brings a great deal of, if you like, tranquility into the marriage. And without question, I remember Imam Taymiyyah, rahmatullah alayh, being asked by somebody, a woman who said, I cannot please my husband no matter what I do. Mm-hmm. Imam said, have you got a few minutes every day before Fajr comes in? She said, I've got as much as you need. He said, get up a little before Fajr and ask Allah. And of course, the implication would be, ask Allah for what? He said, ask Allah to be pleased with you. Mm. Forget the other person. Mm. Nothing can happen unless Allah has allowed that person to do what they're doing. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi. Allah is Nabi alayhi salatu salam saying, Ya Rabb, please make my heart sabat over your deen. Ya Allah, be pleased with me. Mm. Ya Allah, don't punish me. Ya Allah, help me. How often do we get up in tahajjud before Fajr and spread our hands? A beautiful opportunity. I'm not saying dua is the solution to it all, but dua is a very powerful tonic, which we should not underestimate
100%.
In any relationship issues that we have.
100%. 100%. Producer Kashif, is it time to wrap up? Okay, we have the thumbs up. This has been an episode where we've talked a lot. You've gone through 9 T's, the letter T, as in what to do. You started with the tahajjud. I don't think we touched upon number 10, or did we?
We didn't. It was temper.
Temper. Okay.
Controlling temper.
Controlling temper.
Temper has caused more harm to marriages than anything else that I can think of.
Oh, yes.
So it's that outburst of rage because something else affected us, and we have not really allowed a proper way of venting.
Yeah.
And it all comes out at the inappropriate time, and yes, it causes disaster.
100%. So it comes back full circle. It comes back full circle to taqwa. Yeah. Understanding that there is you, your spouse, and God.
Yeah.
Allah, Rabb, the creator.
Yeah.
So again, I'll say it time and time again, whether you're Muslim, you're non-Muslim, if you are watching this episode, if you found it helpful, if you think someone else could benefit, share, subscribe. The Happy Strong Family team does a workshop. That workshop is online now,
Yes.
and it's available for a fee.
It's $47, I believe. Sister Hina Mirza has done it, but there's an on-site thing coming up also in Islamic Center of Bowmanville
Perfect.
on May 17th. Should
Okay.
anybody be interested?
Perfect.
It's on our website.
So you have an on-site marriage workshop in real life. You have an online course,
Yes.
which is available 24/7. It's easily accessible.
Yeah.
So there are resources.
Yeah.
And as we've said time and time again, educate yourself. So again, for anyone watching, we do sincerely hope this has been helpful. Share, and we hope you come back. We live stream every Sunday from Masjid Dar al-Iman from the Happy Strong Family Studios. This is Brother Mushtaq signing off.
Jazakallah.